We've got a quorum, so we're going to get started. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Here. Senator Douglas.
Present.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool.
Here.
Representative Pollock.
Here.
Senator Meredith.
Present.
Chairman Hart.
Here. Is this the one we're starting with?
We got to start here. We got to do that in minutes first.
No, I mean. First item on the agenda is consideration of the minutes of October 8th meeting of the committee. Is there a motion that they...
Motion.
Motion by Senator Douglas, second by Co-Chair Meredith. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Aye.
Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Total items on the agenda today are 388 in the amount of $276,038 or $276,038,040.14. All vendors are registered with the Secretary of State's office. Next is the deferred list, which is the October routine PSC green list and the October routine MOA pink list. The first item on the deferred list is with the Economic Development Office of the Secretary, and our items numbers 165 through 168 on the MOA routine pink list from October. If the representatives are here, please come forward, identify yourself for the record.
Good morning. I'm Katie Smith. I'm the Deputy Secretary at the Cabinet.
Good morning. I'm Matthew Wingate. I'm the General Counsel for the Cabinet.
All right, thank you all. Could you all please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you so much. And I believe Senator or Co-Chair Meredith has some questions.
Well, you folks have been here enough to know that every time we have a retroactive contract, we're going to have a question. And my question goes to the timing of all this. And I appreciate the letter that you sent me. I always appreciate giving some explanation of that. But you make note in it that this still has to go before capital improvement for approval. So why does this come to us before it goes to that group?
I think with the letter may be misspoken. I think that these projects do not have to go before Capital Projects and Bond Oversight Committee. Is that letter? I don't remember the letter. These are just the was it House bills?
I see capital improvements, but it says in the letter that you said, however, please note that each project must, among other reporting requirements, submit project plans to CED for review and approval prior to disbursement of funds.
That's correct.
So that's my question is
That's how we've structured for all of the budget line item projects, is that the vendors and the projects will provide us with a project plan and a timeline so that we know that they're going to begin dispersing and start their project within the next 3 to 6 months. So then we will provide them with the funding to complete their project as outlined in the budget. It's just for a monitoring and compliance. And they're all of these projects are what we call capital improvements, so more fixed assets and capital
Right.
improvements.
I understand that the probability of being disapproved is kind of minuscule, but
Right.
what happens if it is disapproved?
If they were to submit something like operating expenses, that's when we will go
Yeah.
back and ask them if they have other expenditures that they could share with us as part of their plan, because the funding should be a capital improvement.
Okay, all good projects, and I think they're going to be they're great for our Commonwealth, and just didn't understand the flow of the dollars, and so I'm good with it. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right. I believe Senator Douglas has a question on 168. Is that correct?
Right there. Part-time.
My question was then, and continues to be now, since we work through all of this, but I don't know that our public really understands what some of these dollars are going for. So my real question was, could you enlighten us on some of the individual projects that are going on within this waterfront project, so the public kind of gets an idea of where the funds are going.
And so that's what's part of that project plan, is what we're requiring them to submit to us before we would disperse any funds. And so we're waiting for that project plan. We've gone on and we're entering into the contract that will require them to submit us that project plan. So we'd be happy to share any of that information once we receive it from the Botanical Gardens.
Okay, I think the committee would love to see some of the individual things
Project plans?
that are being put in those project plans.
Okay.
I would appreciate that. Thank you very much. That was my question, Mr.
All right, thank you so much. Do I have a motion to consider the contracts review without objection?
So moved.
Motion by co-chair Meredith, second by Representative Pollock. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Aye. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you all so much. Next item on the deferred list is with the Administrative Office of the Courts and is number 1 on the October routine PSC green list. If representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself for the record. Good morning. Make sure your green light is on there. There you go.
Good morning. Valletta Brown, Director, Kentucky Office of Bar Admissions.
My name is Dustin Meek. I'm the chair of the Kentucky Board of Bar Examiners and a practicing attorney here in Kentucky.
All right, thank you all so much. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you all, and I believe Co-Chair Meredith has a question.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for being here this morning.
Thank you.
And I kind of understand the request to exceed the hourly rate. Seems like we're getting more and more of these. Maybe it's a byproduct of inflation. I don't know, but getting more and more of them. But the retroactive start date is what I don't really understand. It's only a $25,000 contract, but why are we looking this retroactively?
Well, Senator, the legal services were needed in order to respond to an original action which was filed under the new rules of appellate procedure under Rule RAP 60. The original action was filed in the Supreme Court. A response was required within 20 days. So I answer to the Board of Bar Examiners. I spoke with my chair, and existing counsel was contacted, and the contract was drafted. But because of the immediacy of the need, that's why the time-sensitive nature is, unfortunately, that timing required the September 1 through September 1 until just whenever the matter is finally resolved, basically. The time-sensitive nature of that was the reason, and the expertise of prior counsel. The Office of Bar Admissions is responsible for admissions in Kentucky. I guess nobody else does what we do except in other states, and so our procedures are quite specific, and the Board of Bar Examiners makes decisions with respect to applicants for admission to practice law in Kentucky. And this was on a specific topic which had been, which counsel had vast prior knowledge of, in the knowledge of the inner workings of this particular topic. Ms. Meek?
Yes, and Senator, to your question, I understand it to be a matter of a timing inquiry, to say, it was labeled retroactive as if the contract was entered into when we should have gotten approval for it in advance. Is that the committee's question? Yes, sir. And I want to respond directly to that. Our group, the Kentucky Office of Bar Admissions, was not previously and historically under the AOC purview. It was essentially an independent acting organization, agency, working at the directive and at the pleasure of the Kentucky Supreme Court. So essentially, the processes and the contracting procedures, I think, were unknown to the office in all fairness. And, you know, we've obviously learned a lot of things since this committee's inquiry. And we have, since the October meeting, spoken with AOC leadership. We do have this issue scheduled for agenda review at our joint board meeting, which happens at the end of February in connection with the February bar exam. So we will be reviewing this to come up with best practice in the future, and try to address it appropriately.
Well, confession's always good for the soul, so I appreciate that. And I assume there had to be a transitional issue here because we're going to deal with a couple of others this morning. But hope you don't ever have to come here again. I'm very sensitive to people's time, but again, we have a responsibility we're trying to fulfill, and if we're doing it retrospectively, we can't do it in good conscience. And usually there's no problem with the content of the contracts themselves. It's just you're asked us to do something that's already happened, and that deserves a little explanation, examination. But your comment about Kentucky is the only way that does this particular issue, we can call it that. What makes Kentucky so particular?
Well, I didn't mean to misspeak. Pardon me. Our office. We're the only people in this. The Office of Bar Admissions and the Board of Bar Examiners are the only folks who give the bar exam. So we're unique in the sense of there's not another agency in Kentucky who does the day-to-day functions of bar admissions. So that was just what my comment was with respect to that, just as far as our unique challenges that we have to address.
Well, how do other states handle it? What makes them different?
Each state has their own admissions, their own Supreme Court rules, their own admissions directives, and they would. I can't speak to their contract procedures, but they certainly have to hire outside counsel to defend the actions of the Board of Bar Examiners and the Character and Fitness Committee.
And last question I have for you. Again, I appreciate this is very specific in nature, and it is a niche, but there was not an RFP for this particular?
No, sir. And that's something that I heard the committee's question about that at the October hearing, which I went back and reviewed. Thankful to KET for that. The question before us is this such that it sets up appropriately for an RFP process? And that's something we're going to explore with AOC. The problem is we don't get, Rule 60 original actions filed on decisions of the board and the office very often. And so it can be onesie, twosie kind of things. We may have several come in a period of time. We may go years and not have any original actions filed with the Supreme Court by applicants, admittees. So for an RFP process to work, there typically would be an opportunity for those bidders to look at this type of work in volume. And as lawyers, law firms will say, we are willing to reduce our rate if we correspondingly receive consideration in the way of volume. This is not a volume type encounter. We will confront and defend actions that are filed from time to time, but it is unpredictable. And as a contracting party with lawyers who are willing to do this work at certain rates on compressed time schedules with some pretty sophisticated knowledge and expertise required, we are in an environment where it may be difficult to find competent, skilled counsel to do this work on a onesie-twosie basis at the 125 rate. We will try our best, and we're going to explore some options.
Well, that's why I was
and try
encourage you to do,
satisfy.
because you say there may be very few, but how do you know until you ask? Again, I appreciate it's only $25,000, but again, when you're trying to justify every dollar that we spend in the Commonwealth, there's got to be some, I think, guardrails in place to ensure that we really do get the best price for the service. And,
We will endeavor to do that, sir.
well, my 7 years on this committee, the two biggest issues I think we have faced are retroactive approvals, which we've seen fewer and fewer of those. It used to be voluminous, and sole source contracts. And this almost falls in that category that's sole source. But what we found out about sole source contracts, usually the criteria is, well, we worked with this group before, we like them, we get along with them, they know our procedures. Well, that's not justification for giving a sole source contract. So I always look for that RFP process, and I'm going to encourage y'all to examine that. It doesn't mean that you won't bring one of these back to us before. Just want you to be aware of our sensitivity and why I'm so adamant about making sure that we have accountability in place for every dollar spent.
I hear the committee's comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Senator Boswell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Was this the renewal of an existing contract?
No, sir, it was not. This was a new contract. The contracts that would be entered into are typical to attorney-client engagements. They are matter-specific, and this particular law firm, or I should say lawyer, has represented this organization previously on matters like this, and so he was well aware of what needed to be put in the brief and the analysis and the procedures and all of that being cited. And so it was, we thought, most efficient for him to pick up this new one since he had successfully resolved one in the past very recently.
And so there was no need for this service in the past?
There is a need for the service in the past.
It was.
Well, there were, I believe, 2 other instances that we worked with this lawyer on separate legal matters.
Thank you.
All right. There's no other questions. Do I have a motion to consider the contracts reviewed without objection?
So moved.
A motion by Senator Meredith, second by Representative Pollock. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith. Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, sirs.
Next order of business is consideration of the agenda, including the deferred list, personal service contract list, PSC amendment list, memorandum of agreement list, memorandum of agreement amendment list, and the corrections list, except for those items selected for further review. Do I have a motion to consider the contracts reviewed without objection?
Motion.
Motion by Senator Douglas. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Representative Pollock. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith. Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. The first items on the pull list are with Disability Determination Services, Department of, and are numbers 11 through 14 on the routine PSC green list. If representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Good morning. Wesley Phelps, Medical Relations Branch Manager, Kentucky DDS.
Good morning. My name is Stacy.
There
Thank
you
you. Good morning. My name is Stacy Kane. I'm the Commissioner for Disability Determination Services.
Good morning, Jessica Williamson. I'm the General Counsel with the Education and Labor Cabinet.
All right, thank you all so much for being here. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you all so much, and I believe Senator Douglas has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank you all of you all for being here today. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask up front. I may have a few questions. I'll try to be brief. And
Go right ahead.
Thank you, sir. I want to start out by asking a simple question. Was there an RFP done for these contracts?
Yes.
How many people applied, or how many bidders did you get?
For this one, I don't recall the exact number, but an award was made for every applicant. So for these 4, these are the only 4 that applied to this RFP.
Are these the same 4 who had the contract before?
Yes, these 4 had prior contracts.
How widespread was your RFP?
It was posted on the VSS site, and we actually advertised throughout the state that there are positions available, that there's work that we need to be done. So our professional relations staff attends the KPA, the Kentucky Psychological Association Conference. They attend the KMA, the Kentucky Medical Association Conference. They table there. We post flyers there. We call clinics, we call hospitals. We talk to doctors throughout the state.
I didn't anything. Are these contracts for individuals or are they for groups of persons?
These are for individuals.
If I may, one more.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, sir. Can you give us an idea of how many claims were reviewed and how many exams were actually done or are expected to be done? We're looking at contracts for $768,000.
Ah, yes.
And I think our public wants to know, what are they getting for that?
So that total amount is based on like a total workload for the year of 6,600 cases. The majority of our medical consultants do not review that many. They're paid per referral that they receive and complete. Do we have the total cleared?
And we're talking about the individual position?
Yes.
6,600?
Yes, a piece, yes.
Yeah.
So for
We cleared, in fiscal year 24, we cleared 50,000 initial claims, and then we cleared 16,000 CDR claims, which that's the continuing disability review claims. And then we cleared, I think, around 25,000 reconsideration claims.
And each of those claims may require multiple assessments. So, for example, if you have an individual who has alleged disability due to a mental impairment and a physical impairment, we don't ask an MD to review the psychological component, and we don't ask a psychologist to review the physical component. That's Social Security's rules. So we'll have a doctor look at the physical component of the case, and then a psychologist look at the mental case. For childhood cases or for specialized cases where there may be a traumatic brain injury or something affecting speech, we also have a speech-language pathologist review those.
Okay. May I?
Yes, go ahead.
I apologize, Mr. Chair. Just one more. Are these individual examinations or are these chart reviews?
These are more like chart reviews. They're not individual examinations.
I'll need to talk to more of my colleagues. Thank you also very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Senator Meredith.
Thank you. Thank you for being here this morning. Are all 4 of these MDs?
No, one of them is a psychologist. Dr. Cutler is a psychologist.
And what's the remaining one? Because only 2 have MD by their name. So
Dr. Saranga, Dr. Mukherjee, and Dr. Kafka are MDs.
Those that are MDs, what's their specialty?
Dr. Kafka is a surgeon, specialized in surgery. Dr. Mukherjee was surgery and family practice, and Dr. Saranga was general family practice, general care.
When you do the RFP, what's the posted job requirements?
We use Social Security's guidelines for individuals who are qualified for medical consulting. So that requires an MD or an OD. The field of practice is not specified by Social Security regulations, but it's desirable to have MDs who have experience in general practice because a lot of impairments come from a very general or broad background. But we do also look to recruit specialists to look at tough cases with very specialized impairments.
And how is the salary determined?
Social Security works with us to set the rate. We use a comparison to what other states pay because we do not want to lose contractors to other states who may pay better than us, but we also try to stick within what a physician in Kentucky could be expected to make for similar work.
Well, I guess that's what caught my attention, and I've been out of the business for almost a decade, but that still appears to be a pretty hefty salary compared to other specialists, particularly for family medicine. And with that, I'm surprised that more people didn't respond to the RFP. I think it'd be a great transition to practice from someone who's got an active practice to going into retirement, but it just seems to be a hefty salary to me. But Dr. Douglas may have a better feel for that than I do.
Senator Boswell.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are these full-time jobs? Are these jobs that there's a doctor that's practicing already and he's doing this on the side? Is this a full-time job?
We have physicians that work both ways.
These
Physicians are all retired from day-to-day practice. So this is what they do primarily. However, they don't all work a full-time schedule. With the contracts pay per referral, so the contracted amount is like an up to amount. It's like a total budget. So they make $50 per referral completed and seen. Some of those referrals can take an hour to 2 hours. Some of them take less. But many of those doctors contracted there do not work a 40-hour week, for example.
Okay, that seems a lot. And so my last question is, this amount that we're paying, that's not, they're a contractor, so that's everything. That's,
Yes.
we don't pay this, we're not paying other benefits, Social Security, retirement, and that's a contract price. So in a
Correct.
sense, you know, that is an all-inclusive amount of money that we're paying them. So we're not adding other benefits on top of that.
Right, that's correct.
Senator Douglas, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One last question. How much of this contracted money is generally used?
It varies widely. I'll say that we have about 3 physicians that get close to that total amount, but the vast majority get closer to the $3,000 mark.
I might make a suggestion. I also talk to my colleagues in the healthcare field. Most of them have no idea this is going on. And so maybe we could sit down and talk about how we can actually reach out and expand the reach of the physicians who are aware of this. This is a large amount. It is a large amount, even in the healthcare space. And I know a number of physicians who would love to leave their practice simply to do this. So I think that we probably need to make that information a little bit more fluidly available across the system, and that's my only comment. But I want to thank you all for coming in and answering the questions. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, you're very well. Do I have a motion to consider the contracts review without objection?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by co-chair Meredith. Do I have a second? Second by Representative Pollock. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
I'd like to vote no, and I'll just explain my vote. I'm not comfortable with some of what we've heard today. No, nothing.
Senator
overly.
Doug-
I'm a no.
Senator Douglas.
I vote aye, but I'd like to explain my vote, Mr.
Go right ahead.
I vote aye, but I'm not particularly happy with the amount that's being paid, and this is the space I work in. But we've got public who are looking at this, and they're saying, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?" And although I really want to support my profession, I also want to make sure that I'm equally supporting the funds, our tax dollars as well. So I really look forward to having a meeting with you all sometime this year during the session, so we can kind of take a look at how we arrive at some of these numbers. But thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
Senator
Chair.
Thomas. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool.
No.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
I'll explain my vote, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Go ahead.
Mine's on the same order as Senator Douglas. I'm a yes, but when this contract comes back to us next time, I would hope that we would could receive a report that there's a way we've generated more interest in this position and make it a little bit more market driven than what it appears to be. So, aye.
All right.
Chairman Hart.
Yes. The contract moves forward. Thank you guys so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Yep. The next item on the pull list is with the General Assembly and is number 21 on the routine PSC green list. If the representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
The guy before me must have been taller. Good morning. My name is Jay Hartz, and I'm the director of the Legislative Research Commission.
Could you please raise your right hand, sir? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you so much for being here, and I believe Senator Douglas has a question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and Jay, welcome. Your people do an absolutely wonderful job, and I want to commend you and your leadership. My question, and I'm just trying to clarify for me, this is to provide funds to implement comprehensive evaluation and determination for the Medicaid reimbursement rates and the development of a Medicaid fee schedule. Is this something that the executive branch is doing currently?
I think there's a perhaps a multifaceted answer to your question, and so depending on your feelings on the movie Shrek, it can either be an onion or a parfait. In this instance, I think it's a parfait rather than an onion. During the last legislative session, the General Assembly did instruct the Cabinet for Health and Family Services to conduct a Medicaid reimbursement study and make recommendations to the General Assembly. Also, in the legislative budget, the General Assembly provided funds for an LRC study related to Medicaid reimbursement rates. In thinking through this and in consultation with the Speaker and Senate President's offices, I would say this is not dissimilar to what the Pension Oversight Board does. They're required by statute for at least every 5 years to retain their own actuary to go back and look at the actuarially required contribution that had been generated by what is now it'll always be the Kentucky Retirement System to me, but the Kentucky Pension Authority, I think, is what they go by now. So we are doing a concurrent study that will provide an extra degree of perspective from a different set of people who can do math related to Medicaid reimbursement rates. I also think it asks an important question that you all will be interested in the answer to, which is looking at the historic times. Does that make sense as I edit myself in real time? There's a history of rebasing Medicaid, and different Medicaid services have been rebased at different times. So part of this report will be to provide the historic context for those rebasements and make suggestions for your evaluation on what a set rate of Medicaid reimbursement would be going forward, so it becomes more predictable.
Thank you. Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
I apologize. I'm a little slow. I have just a few questions. Was there an RFP not only for this study, but also for the cabinet study? And if there was there a different criteria for the two different studies? And if there were, are there different consulting groups doing the work?
That's a fair question. I can't speak to the process that the cabinet used, but based upon the amount of money they awarded to the vendor to do that study, it's likely they did it. They did an RFP. We pursued a request for information process to identify a vendor, and they are the same vendor is not doing work for both entities. So we have two different groups of people looking at this information, and they are asking different questions of the data in order to give you a broader perspective of what the current state of affairs are and what could be possible in the future.
Thank you. I was trying to figure out whether they were asking similar or different questions. Thank you very much, Jay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Meredith.
Jay, do you know who the vendor is for the Department of Medicaid for this?
At some point, I would have known the answer to that question,
Same
but,
here,
as I sit here today, I do not. We took great care to make sure that that we were using a different vendor, and the Public Consulting Group has done this sort of work across the nation. They've done this sort of work previously in Kentucky, and through our due diligence in looking at the work that they've done, I'm confident that they will be able to provide you actionable information to use during the next legislative session. So that was part of the care we had to take in constructing our statement of work, is to make sure that you were getting something that you could use during the next session.
And who will be responsible for spearheading this within LRC?
Thank you for that question, Senator Meredith. In my consultations with the Speaker and Senate President, their offices on moving forward with the effectuating the language that's in the legislative budget, it was determined that I was to create a senior level assistant director position to coordinate not only this project, but questions related to healthcare data generally going forward, the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, and how they operate Medicaid in particular. So we have hired Stephanie Bates to be our first ever Assistant Director for Health Data and Analytics. I'm glad that she agreed to join me in the senior management team. She has a useful background in not only working for the cabinet and administering the Medicaid program, but also working on the private sector side. So I think she has she will have interesting insight for members as committees generate questions. Questions come about from bill drafts to be able to help us get data and evaluate it independently to be able to provide you actionable information.
Thank you. This is a interesting situation where we've got the Cabinet of Health and Family Services doing a rebasing study. We're doing a rebasing study, and I'm really interested, really curious as to how those will differ, and I suspect that they will differ greatly. But I'm curious as to where we go when we receive this information going forward. And this is just an editorial comment. I think both studies are a waste of time, because if we don't do anything with the data, then we've just spent money needlessly. And you look at our payment methodology presently for the Medicaid program, and I describe it as whack-a-mole. Is whoever screams the loudest, the longest, finally gets an adjustment in their fee schedule. You know, we just did this for the nursing home industry, and it's been 20 years since they've seen a rebasing. And I don't know, really, it requires a comprehensive study to determine that folks are not paid adequately. We got the same with almost every healthcare professional group that falls under the Medicaid program, and I think this is kind of a red herring that we're going to look at rebasing, but then we'll never do anything with the study itself. But again, that's just an editorial comment. But very pleased to know that Ms. Bates is going to be part of this. I think she did an exceptional job when she was with the Department of Medicaid Services, and I'll be interested to see what our report looks like compared to the cabinet. So thank you. Appreciate your time.
Senator Boswell.
I think you've answered, thank you, Mr. Hart. I think you've already answered one of my questions. This is going to require new additional personnel working for the state of Kentucky. And I'm assuming if you have a new director, whatever she is, that there will have to be other people, complementary staff, clerical staff, or whatever, that will also have to be hired?
So the quick answer to that question is yes. A fuller answer to that question is I don't think it serves my purposes just to start hiring people willy-nilly. We have a lot of smart people here who are, to borrow a phrase from a world that some of you inhabit, wraparound services. We have a economist's office. We have budget review. We have health and welfare staff that are all currently occupying this space and evaluating data, have the ability to help her get the data that she'll need. For instance, Bart Ligori, who is our assistant director for research, the flavor of PhD he has allows him to serve as a methodologist for the research side of our operation. When we do start assembling staff for this new Office of Health Data and Analytics, it will be because we know that's the sort of person we need, not just we're going to hire some people and hope for the best.
One more question.
Go ahead.
So, this is new spending, but it's one time. I mean, so once this data is received and it's analyzed and all this happens, and you mentioned a while ago about somebody doing it every 5 years. Is this what is the process? Is this annual? It's going to be every 5 years?
Just to clarify, it is the Pension Oversight Board that is required by statute to look at the ARC, the actuarial required contributions, if I can get that out this morning, at least every 5 years. Every 5 years we put an RFP for a new actuary to be able to look at the ARC. So that's why I'm saying this is somewhat similar to that, which is the Cabinet for Health and Family Services has embarked at your direction on a rebasing study. We will also the commission will also be doing a rebasing study. They ask slightly different questions, and we have different entities doing the work. So I think it will provide you different insights in the data. And historic context for your thought process. The legislative budget included one-time money to be able to do this study, but there will be ongoing expenses related to the creation and ongoing operations of this new Legislative Research Commission office.
That was a heart of my question. And so, yes, well, I'm going to make just a little bit of commentary.
Go ahead.
I've been on the committee, I think, for about 2 years, and just one time, and this is not picking on you, Mr. Harris, but I just wish we'd have someone come in there and tell us how we're decreasing a number of state employees, because as we've learned recently from a newly going to be a president-elect, that we're going to start making some significant looks at all these departments in the federal government. And a lot of the stuff that we pay here is federally funded, and I think we need to re-examine everything that we do in the state of Kentucky to make sure that we can't kind of trim back unnecessary, which I'm not saying this is the case. Thank you.
If there's no other questions, do I have a motion to consider the contracts review without objection?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Co-Chair Meredith. Second by Representative Chester Burton. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. No. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton,
Yes.
Representative McCool,
Yes.
Representative Pollock,
Yes.
Senator Meredith,
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for your time.
Next item on the next items on the pull list are with the state treasurer and are numbers 33 through 38 on the routine PSC green list. If representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself.
Good morning, Russell Weber, Deputy State Treasurer and Chief of Staff for the Kentucky State Treasury.
Good morning, Sam Burchett, General Counsel.
Make sure your green light is on. Okay.
Here we go. Sam Burchett, General Counsel.
All right. Thank you so much. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes.
All right. Thank you guys so much, and I believe Co-Chair Meredith has some questions for you.
I do, and I think this is the first time that former Representative Weber has been before our committee, so welcome. Glad to have you here. First question I have for you, Mr. Weber, and I remind you, you're under oath here. The people on this committee, who would you say is your favorite legislator?
And please take some time to think.
Can I answer that after the contract is approved?
Yes, you may.
Consider this your initiation. Glad to have you here, truly.
I'm happy to be here.
We talked yesterday about this, and obviously the first time that they're here, and the issue is the request for retroactive approval. And Russell and I talked a little bit about the process, but again, just to reinforce the point, I'd appreciate if y'all would go through the timeline of these contracts and why there's a retroactive approval request.
Okay, be happy to do that. So the contracts that we had for the audit services for unclaimed properties, and these folks come in and audit entities that submit dollar amounts, and then they're audited afterwards to make sure that the full amounts have been submitted to unclaimed property. It's one of the ways that we possess unclaimed property in the state. Those contracts expired this year, and part of the contract is they would not have automatic renewal, and they would go through the RFP process. When that started, we received the RFP for review, and our general counsel, Mr. Burchett, been in practice for 39 years in the private sector, and he looked at the RFP and said, quite honestly, this was a poorly written document. There was a number of inconsistencies with it, and so to be able to submit a quality work product, we made some recommendations for changes in the RFP. At the time, I did not realize that in the bowels of state government, that triggers a process that moves slow. And so we made those changes, and I think from that came out with a product that was strong and good, and one that we would be happy having in the public domain. And so that did slow the process down, and working with the finance cabinet and getting that agreement on the language. So that was part of the process, and I would say was the beginning of it. We did have a long-term employee in our unclaimed property division who was out for a considerable period of time with a situation with one of her parents, health situation. So that did add to the process. And then I'd say the third and probably bigger issue was the change in the EMARS system that state government went through. I had never dealt with EMARS to that level before, but it was quite a serious undertaking in state government, and it's just kind of those combination of things came together to make for a late submission on these contracts. A number of those things we will address in the future, so it would be my hope that that would not happen again.
And how long have you been involved in state government?
Well, in the executive branch, 11 months, and the General Assembly, 11 years. So,
First, I appreciate y'all's due diligence in looking at these RFPs, and they should be. I think we have a tendency just to let them kind of roll over from contract period to contract period, and I appreciate that due diligence, truly do. As part of our conversation yesterday, I told Mr. Weber that when somebody comes before this committee, we really don't get to approve or disapprove because we don't get the final say on it. It goes through the finance cabinet. But when we approve a contract, I think it's like the good housekeeping seal of approval that our constituents know that it's been vetted, it's been reviewed, and everybody has done everything appropriately. And again, you heard the history that when I first came on this committee, we had just dozens of requests for retroactive approvals, and some were months after the service has been rendered. And there's really no way that we can validate that the work was done properly or that the process in securing those contracts was appropriate. So that's why I'm so sensitive about this particular one. One thing I would encourage y'all to do in the future is, again, we get a letter explaining why the retroactive request is being made, but I would like some information beforehand. As soon as you know that there's going to be a request for retroactive approval, let us know, and that just kind of greases the skids for moving this thing through, because again, we've had experience where folks just didn't want us to know about the contract, and then they come to us requesting the retroactive approval. So I'm sure you folks will be diligent with this as well, but that's why I pulled these contracts and asked for you to appear today, but glad to have you here.
and I appreciate that feedback, and we will certainly take that, and that will be our course of action in the future.
Well, we all want to be as transparent as possible, and that's
I
what
would
we're
agree,
shooting for.
100%.
And with that, do you have an answer to that earlier question yet?
I'm still thinking.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
While you think, I want to point out I'm not the one harassing you. With that, Senator Boswell, go ahead.
Well, thank you. I'm going to do a complete turnaround now on what I said a while ago about hiring additional employees. If I look at the numbers here, you're talking about roughly $12 million. I don't know how much actually was generated in total return of money to the state of Kentucky last year that represents this amount, $12 million. But maybe this might be a case where maybe we should have some in-house employees working on this. I mean, it's not possible if you're at a clip of potentially $12 million a year.
So let me begin by saying that amount of money is not paid out on these contracts. Those contracts used to be $4 million. They were dropped to $2 million. One of the companies on there, Kroll Governmental Solutions, over the course of 6 years, they've been paid out, I think it was $1.46 million in their contract. They get 12% of what they locate. So that 12% over a 6-year time period amounted to 1.46. Some of those contracts on there, they generate very little. Part of the issue that we have in our office is that our volume of submissions for unclaimed property, and we always like to remind folks, this is not our money. This belongs to the taxpayers of Kentucky, and we're on course right now at the end of this week to probably return about $30 million to Kentucky residents through unclaimed property. That said, our full unclaimed property account is probably close to $840 million right now. We have a very active outreach to try to return that. Due to the volume of requests and people who are filing for that unclaimed, our staff, they just don't have the time to perform the audit part of it. It's very comprehensive. It requires a lot of time. I mean, we could have a conversation in the future about that, but the existing staff right now, we had a number of vacancies when we started. We have filled those to be able to service the people of Kentucky. But right now, it would be hard for our staff to audit and perform the day-to-day functions that they're required to do.
So then my last comment is that the $2 million, the $12 million that's listed here is actually it's too much. It's an overestimation of what you expect to pay out.
That could certainly be visited, yes.
All right, thank you.
But that's a cushion in the event we had somebody that really just went hog wild and found a lot of money.
Senator Douglas. Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. More of a comment than a question. My concern as I review these particular contracts, I wonder if we have honest people in the Commonwealth, because none of these contracts are being performed by anyone in the Commonwealth. And that concerns me a little bit. I know that, you know, we have an RFP and we have to search out for those that we are really going to get a good return on our investment. But I'm continually looking at contracts that are outside the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And I guess I've been known for saying things that other people won't say, but I'm always concerned. We have hardworking people in the Commonwealth, and I like to think that we have honest people in the Commonwealth. And I'd like to think that in the Commonwealth, we would be able to find someone who can perform these serviceable actions within the Commonwealth. And this is not a knock on you, obviously, you know that. I just want to throw this out for something for us to think about with all our monies going outside the Commonwealth. I just get concerned when I'm continually seeing contracts outside of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Thank you, Russ.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? If not, do I have a motion to consider the contracts review without objection?
So moved.
Second.
A motion made by Senator Meredith, second by Senator Douglas. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you all so much for being with us. Good
Thank
to see
you.
Russell.
Russ, you can tell me the answer a little bit later on. We don't have to tell these people, okay?
All right. The next items on the pull list are with the University of Kentucky, and our number is 47 on the routine PSC green list and 43 and 47 on the amendment Ivory list. If representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Good morning, Jennifer Fraker, Government Relations at the University of Kentucky.
Good morning, Barry Swanson. I'm the Chief Procurement Officer for the university.
Good morning. I'm Shannon Stamper. I'm Deputy General Counsel at the University of Kentucky, here to speak on 2 of the items.
All right. Thank you all so much. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Do.
Thank you all so much, and we will give you a little bit of leeway for that win last night. So, with that being said, I believe Senator Boswell has some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How much was the contract last year? This is a renewal of a contract previously in place.
Yes, Senator.
What was the actual cost?
I'm not prepared with that today. I can definitely provide that to you. Our business officer, I can reach out to her in the next few minutes and try to get that. I do not think it was the full $500,000. If we did that for the prior biennium, we likely did not spend that.
So that was my question: is how do you determine if it's going to be 500,000 coming here? And so yeah, I understand you, and you're trying to give yourself a little cushion there.
Correct.
So it's not necessarily what you're going to contract to be paid. It could be paid up to 500.
Correct. This particular firm, Powers Pyle, we selected because of this very specific expertise on a very complex regulatory program that's run out of Washington. That's why it's a Washington firm. Not knowing, with every presidential election, of course, when we enter into the contract, you never know who's going to win. But, administrations change, rules change, things like that. So you're never totally sure what might happen in these complex regulatory areas. But that was just a speculation. So.
Yes. So this is not particularly about this contract, but I will say this. So
sure.
We're running across this a lot. My son's an attorney.
Yes.
And he has thoughts about this, and he's shared with me about some of these rates that are being charged, not necessarily these, but others, some of $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 an hour. And I'm not sure if we're not going to have to revisit as a legislature this rule that we only pay $125 an hour, because it appears as that we're going into the future, we're not going to be able to get anybody hired for $125. I think this is something that we may have to look at.
If you don't mind, if I could opine on that, I am a little concerned that allowing the higher rates from outside the state and requiring Kentucky attorneys to stick with the 125 is actually hurting our Kentucky attorneys who want to actually do the work for the university. Now, in this particular contract, again, complex thing, not sure there's a Kentucky attorney who could do this particular contract. But I think you'll see that we have come to you before with medical malpractice rates that are a little higher, and those are going to Kentucky lawyers because we need the best Kentucky lawyers to provide those services, and we want to be able to hire Kentucky lawyers.
And the one thing I do see as Skip, I'm sorry if I may make one more.
Go ahead.
One thing I do see as I look at these, is I can understand why the lawyer who has really very limited, a lot of knowledge in a particular area would be paid more money because of his expertise. But what as I see as I look deeper into some of these contracts, that the paralegals and some of the office staff are also paid considerably high amounts of money. And I guess as I look at these contracts, that's the one thing I do see that I'm very concerned about.
I understand. We do negotiate our rates. They don't just hand them to us. So Mr. Throw, our general counsel, was not able to be here today because of a travel schedule. He would have been the one who would have been negotiating this rate, but I do know in general that that there are discussions even when even at this level of rates. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, do I have a motion to consider the contract reviewed without objection?
So moved.
Motion made by co-chair Meredith, second by Representative Pollock. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
I'm going to say aye, but may I explain my vote?
Yes, go right ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I may say something that may be fairly controversial. We live in an environment where we have managed health care. And when people take a look at our Constitution, there's no constitutional right to health care. But we also live in an environment where we do have a constitutional right to legal representation, but we don't have managed legal help. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton.
No.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you all so much for being with us today. The next item on the pool list is with the Department of Environmental. Oh, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. Senator Boswell. I'm glad you all sat still. On the Ivory list, 43 and 47.
I need to introduce my colleague.
Yes, go right ahead.
Oh, he's going to go up there. Okay.
Coming in off the bench.
I'm Kevin Locke. I'm the Associate Vice President of Planning, Design, and Construction at University of Kentucky.
All right, thank you so much. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you so much. The Ivory list. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, this is a contract for architectural services, JRA Architects. That was, the contract amount was, this is the amendment list, $28,972,000. And I know that relatively speaking, the amount of increasing requests is not that much. But I just have a hard time as a businessman finding out if I'm a business person, I'm a company, and I put a bid in for $28 million, well, I don't think that's going to be enough. I mean, when these contracts are bid this kind of money, I would think it would be a little more inclusive, or that we would be coming back asking for another $30.
Right. This $37,500 was clearly an additional service in that we have a mobile PET CT unit that was right adjacent to where we're doing excavation work at the Markey Cancer Center. So when we were through the design development of the project, we noticed, or we were very concerned and found out that the vibration from the excavation was going to cause problems with the mobile PET CT unit. And so therefore it was determined, because of the load on the usage of the mobile PET CT unit and everything associated with it, that we had to relocate it to a different area in the Markey Cancer Center. So as it's not really common practice, but because of the usage of that mobile PET CT scanner, we relocated it, and we paid that additional $37,500 to the existing design team to relocate it to the other portion of the Markey Cancer Center because of the load. And that was going to expedite getting it to that new location as quickly as possible. And it wasn't going to cause any sort of delay on the actual health education building itself. Because a project of that magnitude, obviously you're looking at escalation somewhere around a 4% escalation per year, which, you know, for a project of that size, that comes out to almost that's close to $1 million, math in public here, about $1 million per month. So we didn't want to have that relocation of the mobile unit to affect the starting of the excavation work, and we're also very concerned about the load on the mobile PET CT.
Well, I certainly understand that there has to be, those change orders comes in on any project.
Yes.
I'm just saying a project of this magnitude with $28 million contract, I think it's kind of, I'm just saying, I think it's ridiculous that we're allowing additional funds that, and I'm shocked that as a company that they couldn't figure out some way to include those services within the $28 million. And that's all I have to say.
Understood.
Okay. And if there's no further questions, do I have a motion to consider the contracts reviewed without objection? Am I jumping ahead again? Okay, go right ahead, Senator Boswell, and I apologize.
Oh, we're going to go ahead and talk about 47.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't. I didn't have a question about 44 because at least in that case, we're not talking about $28 million. At least in that case, we're not talking about 20. So I'm okay with 44.
Okay, I'll make a motion on
Yeah.
43.
I think I have.
All right. I have a motion by co-chair Meredith on contract number 43, a second by Representative Pollock. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
No.
Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton.
No.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes. Yeah, motion passes on that contract. Now, contract number 47.
Okay, that's also, yeah, that's, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, that's Dennis Moore and Stowe, legal services. The contract was $2.4 million. This is an amendment increasing the cost of that contract by $1 million, not 50%, but I'll have to figure 40% probably increase in a contract. Now, was there some type of oversight when this contract was let and received a $2.4 million indicate a need to raise and amend a contract by $1 million?
First of all, I believe the new total of the contract is 2.4 million. That's I have on the notice of amendment that was actually submitted shows the revised contract amount is 2.4 million. So I believe it was 1.4, and we have added $1 million to it. But this is driven by this is not an oversight. This is driven by a specific piece of litigation that has taken much, much longer than such types of litigation usually would. It is a matter that is currently in Fayette Circuit Court. It is a matter that has involved a great deal of e-discovery It has also involved a matter of a great deal e-discovery with 160,000 pages of documents being asked to be delivered within a few hours to a court's chambers. And I will go ahead and say, because this is public record, that in that particular matter, there is currently a request, an affidavit with the Chief Justice of the Kentucky State Supreme Court to actually remove the judge managing that case. That is a public record. I would decline to speak about it any further, but we'll point you to the public record with a long history of the case going on. We still don't expect to use the entire $1 million, but the original 1.4, this is a firm we use for many things, including our regular medical malpractice, as I was talking about earlier. We have expanded, you all know, because you all have approved our UK's acquisitions of St. Clair Hospital recently. That's another opportunity. Those physicians are also now in our med malpractice fund. So that was effective July 1st. I believe our original amount was anticipating those physicians coming in on July 1st. But given what's happening in these other cases, we are a little concerned we're going to need an extra cushion of money. $1 million is a lot. We don't think it's going to be the full $1 million, but we were very worried about bumping up against the 1.4 again over the entire biennium. I want to point that out, not just a 12-month period, but a 24-month period.
Okay, thank you. That helps answer my question.
Thank you.
You know, and I think this is the problem that we're seeing across the board. We're seeing these cases get caught up in legal rigmarole, and the attorneys are not necessarily in wanting to hurry this up. And so I hope as you deal with these law firms that one of the primary objectives is to get these things settled.
With this particular case I just described, it is not the attorneys going on, or it's not our attorneys trying to drag it out.
Thank you.
So.
All right. Any other questions? If not, do I have a motion to approve contract number 47? A motion by Senator Boswell, second by Representative Pollock. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Aye. Senator Douglas.
Aye, but this is more food for thought.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the pull list is with the Department of Environmental Protection and is number 4 on the PSC Amendment Ivory list. If representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Gaddis. I'm the director of the Kentucky Division of Water.
I'm Glenn Alexander. I serve as the State Dam Safety Engineer for the Division of Water.
All right. Thank you all so much. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you all so much. And I believe Senator Boswell has a question on this.
Okay, that's with Stan Tech. Again, the original contract, and I'm thinking maybe that's not the original contract amount after when we talked about. That's the total contract apparently now is 1.765, which includes the increase, or is that an increase above that amount?
I believe the 1.7 is the includes the increase.
Well, I'm going to take that as a yes. That's the total cost of the project. Let's see. Well, that's really my primary question right now is that such a large increase on a project that was apparently contracted for about $1 million then, and now it's being raised by $758,000. Am I reading that wrong?
You wanna go ahead?
Yes, sir. This is a heavy civil work project. This follows the typical DECA structure of a phased approach in design. So this increase is to move from Phase B 40% design into Phase C final design and bid support. So when we do develop these civil works projects, we have multiple phases, and each phase determines the cost of the next phase.
So, let me see if I understand this correctly. Was this put out for bid originally when Stantec received this contract?
Yes, this was through RFP.
And they bid $1 million?
No, sir.
Yes?
No, they originally bid the Phase A amount.
Okay.
And then when we move to Phase B, we have a change order. And then when we move to Phase C, we have a change order.
I see. Okay. All right. I understand.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Senator Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So are we to understand this is a different contract? Because this is a Phase B.
No, sir, it is still the same
Whoa,
contract.
No. Let's back up. Phase A was the original contract for $1 million. Correct?
The contract is for design and development of the project.
Which was the contract, period.
Yes.
Okay, so we're moving to Phase B. I'm not trying to be difficult, but I'm also not trying to. But I also don't want to. I also want to make sure that our public understands how this works. Please understand that's my only purpose. I'm not here for any other purpose. I serve the people of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. My job is to help educate the people of the Commonwealth of Kentucky because they care about how their tax dollars are being spent. This is not personal. This is none of that. I'm part of my job is to be an educator. And our people of the Commonwealth aren't stupid. So we had a contract for $1 million, correct?
Yes, sir.
It's a yes or no question.
That's the initial contract, yes.
Okay. So we have a different contract now, maybe under the same heading, for 1.765, 396.56. Would that be fair to say?
This,
Excuse me.
I know it's a continuation.
The original contract was not for $1 million.
would you like to join us?
Could you please identify yourself for the record?
My name's Scott Baker, the Executive Director, Division of Engineering, Finance Cabinet.
All right. Could you please raise your right hand, sir? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you so much, and you may continue.
Okay. So we've explained this before. In the design process, first off, these contracts are not awarded on price. They are awarded on qualifications through the RFP process, and the consultant is selected. The initial design for this project, the original contract, was for geotech work and discovery work to base the overall design on. So that was the original contract amount. This is actually the third amendment to this contract. The original was the programmatic stage, then we did Phase A, and now we're moving to the next phase of design. This is how all design projects are done across the board, have been forever. That you negotiate each phase as you move forward. If you were to try to negotiate at the front end, the full design phase for a project of this size or the capital or any of these projects, the Commonwealth would lose drastically every single time because you're going to negotiate on a bunch of unknowns. We have to do these discoveries on the front end to determine what's below the soil, what conditions we're on in order to advance the design process through the next phases. That's why each phase is negotiated. The original contract is a negotiated amount, not a bid amount. No one ever put a bid in for this contract. They did an RFP response to the committee. The committee reviewed their qualifications, their ability, their past experience in similar projects, and they were awarded the contract based on that. The initial fee was negotiated based on the initial request for services, and then once those were determined and those findings were provided, Then we move forward to the next phase of design, to design the next phase, and so forth and so on through the final phase D, construction and implementation phase. Many of these contracts, and this has, again, been an ongoing issue, these contracts will have multiple changes, especially if they're on a larger phased project. There will be multiple iterations. But again, you cannot negotiate a fee on the front end with that many unknowns, because you're going to negotiate. The negotiations are always going to end up to the provider's advantage, because they're going to negotiate in projected cost for items that you may or may not need until you've done the required discoveries of the design process. Until you know that the footprint of the building is going to be this big, then you don't know what the geotech work's going to be. You don't know. All of those things have to be determined in the early phases. But every amendment to every one of these contracts is negotiated in the same manner in which the initial one is negotiated. And all of these changes through all of these architectural engineering contracts that we come before you on are negotiated in that manner. So again, it's the best interest of the Commonwealth, the best interest of the taxpayer every time.
Well, thank you, Mr. Baker. I appreciate that follow-up. I was here before when you explained it. I'm okay with that. But again, my job,
I agree.
Understand my job,
Yes, sir.
is to make sure that our public is informed. We seem to forget that sometimes. It's extremely important to me. When a patient came into my office, my job was to make sure that they understood the information that I was putting forth, because I knew they didn't remember what I said the last time. That's a given. So I appreciate you stepping up. This is the information that we need to provide to our public, because the questions we get is, why is this happening? And we need your help and your assistance in educating them on this is why it proceeds in this particular way. So I want to thank you for stepping forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Again, the original contract for this one what was $269,000, and again, it's been adjusted up for each negotiated phase as the project, this development of this dam has moved forward. Then these folks are able to sit down with them and negotiate where we're going next in the development of it, and that's. Thank you.
All right, Senator Boswell.
I understand everything you're saying, and I appreciate what you're saying, and I can understand also if you did this entire thing out, it could not be cost effective to the citizens of the state of Kentucky. But I guess my biggest concern is when these contracts are originally brought in here, I think it'd be helpful for us to, when we look at this, when you're putting this out for an RFP and it's an original contract with only $269,000, now it's up in the millions. It sounds like to me we're only in phase B, so there's going to be additional work yet to come.
Yes.
So it would have been helpful to me when this original contract come up, for whatever amount that was, for somebody to say this is only going to be phase B, and maybe it was, like I had to go back and look, to say that in the future we expect the cost for this engineering project to be $3 million or $4 million, so that we won't be having to ask questions like we're asking today. That's all.
Okay, Senator Meredith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Baker. Appreciate the education on this. For this particular project, I mean, this is just the engineering phase of it. What's anticipated total cost of this? Do we know at this point?
The anticipated cost at this time is going to be $30 million.
$30 million?
By the time we complete the dam and the roadway project. It will widen the state highway that goes over top of the dam. It also secures the primary drinking water reservoir for Washington County and Springfield. So it's a very large project.
Yes, it is. And you know what would, I think, help us is all we get is a thumbnail description of these. And, you know, more often than not, when we get these, it says, provide additional design work for work as directed by so-and-so. Well, it looks like it's an add-on. It's really not an add-on. It's a continuation of project. So maybe that's one area that we work upon, is changing these descriptions, say maybe phase 2 of this project. And that would help us greatly.
Could not agree more.
Well, and again, this just on this particular one, but we've seen particular college campuses that suddenly a project just balloons because of additional scope of services. Well, why is there additional scope of services? We don't know these things. So I appreciate your patience. I appreciate the education, and it's been insightful. Thank you.
Just a comment, not a question. And obviously, everything that I get to experience here in this committee is very educational for me personally. So the engineering contracts are not basically is a little bit different than other contracts, is my understanding from Mr. Baker's explanation. So, because I think in me just observing, I'm an observer a lot of times, but when we see the increase, it's a red flag on this committee. And so, in my looking at this, and again, the experience of these contracts that we get to see, engineering is a little bit different than your other typical contracts that are being pulled in this committee. Is that correct?
And architectural.
Okay.
So the architectural engineering services, the design services of our projects are approached statutorily under their own RFP selection process, that they're selected based on qualifications, and then the contracts are negotiated throughout each phase and iteration of the design and construction.
And so, and following up Co-Chair Meredith's comment, in these architect engineer contracts, the more information on the description really would help kind of explain what's going on. And more than likely, who knows, probably wouldn't be pulling contracts, but when we see increase, it obviously is like, hey, we got to find out what's going on. And that's, again, to follow up the Senator Boswell and Senator Douglas' concerns in education is kind of, in a nutshell, what we're kind of at too.
I will work with my staff to make sure, find out where that data is pulled from on what we submit, and make sure that they correct their language, their use of language, so that it is a more explanation. It doesn't have to be a single sentence. You'll take 3 or 4 if it explains more detail. So I'll work with our staff in the future to make sure that gets corrected.
Thank you all so much.
Representative McCool.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the information today. It's very useful for all of us. I just want to make sure that I understand too, when let's say phase 1, you have this architectural design done. When you go to phase 2, do you use the same architectural folks, or do you put it back out for?
No. Each phase has to be carried through with the same firm, and that's what the original RFP and offering is for the entire design process. We just negotiate each phase of the design or each phase of the project, and then some projects will be solicited on the front end RFP for multiple phases even within that. So, for instance, we have some corrections projects and some other projects out there now that are large campgrounds east. So for all the campgrounds in the eastern part of the state. So as we're doing various changes to each campground design, each one of those are going to be their own individual increase to that original design contract. But it's not an increase. It's now the design for this particular campground or that particular campground or whatever the case may be.
But very specifically, it stays with the architectural group that does the initial one.
Yeah, because they're not. It's against architectural and engineering policy. If I'm the architect of record and I complete it, a new architect or an engineer that comes in can't take my work and use it, even though the work belongs to the Commonwealth. They have to, because they're not going to sign off on my design, kind of like an attorney's not going to sign off on somebody else's brief.
Thank you.
Kind of the same thing.
So it shows consistency.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any other questions? If not, do I have a motion to consider the contract review without objection?
Yes, I make a motion.
A motion by Representative Chester Burton. Is there a second? Second by Senator Douglas. All those in favor vote aye. All opposed, no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Aye. Senator Douglas.
I say aye, and I hope that we're all having fun now.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Next item on the pull list is with the Department for Workforce Investment and is number 6 on the PSC Amendment Ivory list. If representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Chair, I'm going to have to go
Cora McNabb. I'm the Executive Director for the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation.
Good morning, Jessica Williamson. I'm General Counsel with the Education and Labor Cabinet.
All right, thank you all so much for being here. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
Thank you all so much. And I've got a few questions. The description refers to this as a statewide program, which is a pretty big deal. And I'm not sure I understand what it's for. So if you all could you just maybe take a minute and explain the alternative assessment program to us and what it's necessary for?
One of our state-owned facilities is a 24/7 residential facility in Thelma, Kentucky, the Carl D. Perkins Vocational Training Center. And it is a training center for individuals with disabilities. And we right now probably have around 130 individuals that are participating in programs there. We offer different training programs to prepare individuals for employment at the center. About 68% of the individuals that attend the center have a mental health diagnosis. And probably around 98% of those individuals have significant disabilities. And so this individual is on staff to help provide counseling, medication, evaluation, and assessment.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, that does help. And I apologize. I said the alternative assessment program. That's not what I was referring. But you've done an excellent job. Yeah. You've answered my question on that. Is there this kind of indicates that there might be an increase in this type of diagnosis? Are you all finding that, or?
Yes, absolutely. In the past couple of years, post-COVID, there has been an increase in mental health issues.
I mean, don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you have any numbers, or I mean, if you don't, it's understandable because but I'd like to maybe see some numbers. If you don't have them or you can't relay that right now, if you could send that to us.
Sure.
That is all I have. I was more interested in what the program was, and I appreciate that. Senator Douglas, I think, has a question.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I may have missed it, but is there a difference in how we're diagnosing and what we're including in the mental health circle or the mental illness circle?
You mean in the evaluation and in the assessments?
Right. And how we, has there been a change in how we are assessing the term mental health?
I don't know that I have the expertise to answer that question for you. And I'm sure each of the practitioners probably uses a different, assessment and an evaluation.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Representative McCool.
Not a question, just want to make a comment that I have visited the Carl D. Perkins Center multiple times. It is a fantastic facility and does great work, and just want to say appreciate what they do.
Well, thank you very much.
If there's no other questions or comments,
motion approved.
I got a motion by Senator Meredith, second by Representative Pollock. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Aye.
Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool. Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you all so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
The next item on the pool list, the next items on the pool list are with the Department of Highways and are numbers 16 and 17 on the PSC Amendment Ivory list. If representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Good morning. Joining you
They're-
remotely today.
All right, thank you.
My name is Eric Pelfrey. I'm the Director of Professional Services, and I'm also joined by Brad Bottoms.
I'm Brad Bottoms. I'm the Chief District Engineer for Department of Highways District 4 in Elizabethtown.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, for being with us. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all so much, and I believe Senator Boswell has some questions.
Thank you for being. Oh, you're there. Okay.
They're virtual. Yeah.
Yes, I think the questions I have on this are similar to the ones I had earlier. I guess I'd like to hear an explanation as to why some of these additional costs weren't anticipated in the original contract.
Yes, sir, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. Also, I would like to thank my colleague Scott Baker, because you're exactly right, Senator Boswell. This is exactly what he just mentioned with the environmental contracts. So to kind of back up, we do everything, again, exactly the same as they do at the Finance Cabinet through the qualifications-based selection process. That's mandated to us by the Federal Brooks Act of 1972 for all engineering and architectural services. So for these contracts specifically, we select the most qualified firm. After we select, then we enter into the phase one, which we call preliminary engineering. After we get through phase one, which includes environmental, which is again a federal process, the NEPA Act, we have to get through NEPA and pick a preferred alignment before we go into phase two. So just kind of higher overarching theme. Again, just like Scott said, if we went ahead and did all of this up front, where we estimated and the consultant estimated, the consultant's always going to estimate high just based on risk. We always would want to, of course, estimate low, which makes negotiations not just tougher, but also far higher in cost, but also draws out the schedule. So we've used a phased approach for longer than I've been in this division, so 10, 12 years or more. And again, that's just for the better of the Commonwealth and the citizens. We obviously are stewards of the taxpayer dollars. We want the best for the cabinet and the citizens of the Commonwealth, both in efficiency of dollars and schedule.
Okay, thank you. And so I do have one other question. So in these two contracts, there's a mention, and you kind of touched on that, environmental services, and there's another one that talks about archaeology and biology services. And you mentioned this NEPA. I think this is not your problem, but I think this is a problem in general, that we're spending so much money on these environmental archaeological studies, these biological studies, and I'm hoping that we're going to get relief through a new administration in Washington, which does not require us to do all this. Can you just give us a brief description on exactly what this entails as far as this environmental studies and some of these things?
Yeah, and I apologize to introduce him, but also Stuart Litch is joining us remotely. He's out of our Bowling Green office, and he's actually the project manager for that contract. So he may have specifics exactly on this one, but traditionally, the environmental process is like you mentioned, it's done through our NEPA Act. We have to go through the full environmental suite. If there are impacts to the environmental portion of the project, that just takes a little bit more time and money, like you mentioned. But at this point, we don't have any control. You alluded to the fact that something may happen at the national level, which again, we're hopeful that can happen to allow us to actually deliver these projects quicker. But as of now, we're at the mercy of them.
Thank you, sir, that you answered my question. A very, very good answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions or comments, do I have a motion to consider the contract review without objection?
So moved.
Motion made by Meredith, by Senator Meredith, and seconded by Senator Douglas. All those in favor vote aye. All opposed, no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Aye.
Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool. Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us today.
Thank you.
Let's see. The next item on the pool list is with the Department for Local Government and is number 20 on the routine MOA pink list. The agency is requesting a referral to the December meeting on this, so do I have a motion?
Motion to defer.
A motion by Senator Meredith, second by Senator Douglas. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
I'd like to vote aye, but I'd like to explain my vote. This is one that I pulled. I would ask for each member of this committee to take a hard look at this contract. I'm not suggesting that there's anything inappropriate, but to say that we're going to be spending some money, the federal funds, I realize that when it boils down to it, it's going to be $300,000 for a lot. I'm in the real estate business, and that's something. So it's going to be deferred, and I'm okay with that.
All right.
Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool. Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes. Next item on the pool list are with the Department for Public Health, and our numbers 60 through 64 on the routine MOA pink list, and 15 and 16 on the MOA for 50,000 and under gray list. Yes.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Department of Health.
Hold on a minute, sir. Please identify yourself for the record.
My name is Jessie Parker, and I am the prevention lead within the HIV section.
All right.
My name is Bob James. I'm the Assistant Director for the Division of Epidemiology and Health Planning.
Dr. Tisha Johnson, the HIV/AIDS Medical Director at the Kentucky Department for Public Health.
All right. Thank you so much. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you all so much. And Senator Boswell, I think, has a question.
Thank you. As I read these, I just have a couple questions. So, I think we all know what causes HIV. I don't think there's any lack of education as when it comes out, but maybe there should be some more education versus what's being offered in these programs. Unfortunately, HIV and STDs are part of our everyday life in our society, and the results in most cases promiscuity, sexual promiscuity, and it's in all segments of our society. So why are we picking out this particular part of our, like for example, HIV versus other types of venereal disease, STDs? Why are we doing just this particular category of problems? And I understand that the word don't want to pronounce it wrong. Prophylaxis is a matter of long-term treatment and all that. But this program also does it include needles, for example, giving out of hypodermic needles or condoms?
Thank you for your question, Senator Boswell. The reason these contracts are here today is because these are long-standing programs, the HIV prevention and ending the HIV epidemic. And this new grant is a consolidation of those funding streams. So these are the HIV prevention and EHE grants. We did an RFA process to conform with the federal guidelines and the new grant name. These do focus on HIV awareness and testing within our communities.
Okay, well, I would just say this has been around for a long time, but I think these programs are a perfect example for me of things that probably should cease to exist. And so I have serious concerns about these programs in general. So,
Senator Douglas.
If I may, we do talk about distribution and prophylaxis. Does that also include prophylactics?
Yes.
No, well, sort of yes. Why?
I'm assuming you're talking about condoms.
I am.
Okay. We do fund it. That is the number one way to prevent the transmission of HIV.
No. The number one way is to stop the risky behavior. And I don't mean to be disrespectful at all. It's just that my 44 years in the healthcare space suggests to me that the number one way of preventing it is to stop the risky behavior. The condoms are probably, gosh, tertiary. I mean, there are a lot of other reasons why this particular behavior continues. And my concern is that we continue to perpetuate poor decision-making. And I understand the argument that people are going to make poor decisions regardless of whether our public pays to mitigate those poor decisions or not. And that's really the quandary that we're in, is that we are asking folks who otherwise are going to commit or make poor decisions, whether we intervene or not. We essentially are trying to protect others, ourselves and others, because of a population that continues to make poor decisions. And I'm not criticizing anyone. I mean, we all have, that's why I love this country. We have the right to say things that probably shouldn't be said, and we have the right to do things that probably shouldn't be done. But I do think that we have a huge number of people in our Commonwealth and our general public who actually are paying taxes, not just receiving the benefits of those taxes, but who are paying taxes, who would like us to reevaluate whether or not we should continue to perpetuate these programs. At least that is what I'm getting from a number of people in my district. So I just wanted to get that on the record, that this is not, this may be a number one way that we who don't participate in those practices can help those who will, regardless of what we do, continue to make poor decisions to mitigate the damages to the other group. So I think sometimes we just need to put that out there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And if there's no other questions or comments, do I have a motion to consider the contract review without objection? This would be contracts number 60 through 64.
I make a motion.
I have a motion by Representative Chester Burton. Do I have a second?
I'll do a second.
I have a second by Representative Pollock. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell,
I'm a no.
Senator Douglas,
No, but explain my vote.
Go right ahead.
This is really a hard one for me, being in the healthcare space, because I always have to balance the mental and physical health of our people of the Commonwealth with good medical practice, with responsibility and accountability. And those two in this space are often diametrically opposed. And the vote could go either way, Mr. Chairman, but I have to be a no on this one.
All right, thank you so much.
Senator Thomas, Representative Chester Burton,
Yes.
Representative McCool, Representative Pollock,
Yes.
Senator Meredith,
I'm a yes with one caveat. I hope folks were paying attention to something said earlier. I can't remember if it was Senator Douglas or Senator Boswell, but this is federal funding. We all know we're running a huge federal deficit, and I'm looking for some changes in the future. So I would encourage everyone to give some thought as what your contingency plans might be in the future if that funding's not there. I think it's a real challenge going forward, but I'm a yes at this point.
Chairman Hart,
I vote yes, and I also would like to just reemphasize what Co-Chair Meredith said. As we do move forward in this country with new administrations and things coming in, the federal funding might not be there. So that's something that we all need to consider moving forward with these programs. So with that, the motion carries and contract moves forward. Thank you all so much for being here.
We had the other two.
Oh, I've been doing this all day long. I just want to get out. The next items are numbers 15 and 16 on the MOA 50,000 and under gray list. And Senator Boswell, I think you have a question on that as well. No, the motion was for 60 through 64 on the pinks, unless you.
I have a 66, I thought on the. Okay. Yes. That's number 28 on the Kentucky Work Part.
15. It's on the gray list.
It's part of the, pretty
Oh, okay, that's the same. That's
Same.
That's the same. That's the same. It's the very same issue. And
So, well, therefore, if there's no other questions on it, do I have a motion to consider the
Motion.
Motion by Senator Meredith, second by Representative Pollock. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
No.
Senator Douglas.
No.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool. Representative Pollock.
yes.
Senator Meredith.
I'd like to explain my vote.
Go
I'm a
ahead.
guess again, and it's just kind of a continuation of discussion earlier. Relying on federal funding is sort of like being addicted to drugs. And as we pull away this federal funding, which we anticipate, there's going to be some withdrawal. And again, I just caution folks that in anticipation of that, there's got to be kind of a transition period. And that's why I kind of view this to prepare people who've relied on this for years and years and years. We've got to transition. So that's why I will vote aye on this one.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Now, you all may be excused. Thank you all so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Let's see. The next items on the pull list, make sure the next items on the pull list are with the Department for Education, or of Education, and our numbers 66 and 170 on the routine MOA pink list. And if you would, go ahead and make sure your green light's on, and please identify yourself for the record.
Good morning. My name is Karen Worth, and I'm the Budget Director for the Department of Education.
Sorry. Good morning. I'm Rhonda Sims, Associate Commissioner in the Office of Assessment and Accountability, Kentucky Department of Education.
All right, thank you, ladies, for being here. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you so much, and I believe Senator Boswell has some questions.
Thank you for your attendance. So we're spending $3.85 million for program involved English language proficiency assessments. Is this a new program, or is it just a renewal of an existing program?
No, it's an existing program. It's a federally required assessment. We've been using this same assessment since 2006-07. What does change about the cost of this assessment, though, is the number of students in Kentucky that are English language learners. So when we started this testing program in 2006-07, we had around 10,000 students in Kentucky. In 2024, we were up to 47,000 assessments. So this is a population that continues to increase that are in our public schools, but the requirement is a federal requirement that we must administer an assessment for English language acquisition. So this test is looking at how students are developing skills in English language.
Can you elaborate, please, on these students, who they are?
They're usually, some are maybe born in the U.S., but they are in homes where English is not the first spoken language, typically. So there's a screening process that public schools do to identify when you have what's called an English learner. So they may be in a home where Spanish is spoken more frequently, or Swahili, or some other group. We really have, many of our districts in Kentucky have some number of English learners. We have concentrations, particularly in Bowling Green, in Warren County, in Mayfield, in Jefferson County. But we really, I think of our 171, 72 districts, probably about 140 or 50 now have a population of English learners.
Okay, recent studies have come out regarding, just in general, some of our school districts in the state of Kentucky where our normal citizens are not all that proficient in English. And so as I look at these numbers, I'm wondering what's going, what's?
So let me make a distinction for you. When we've talked about test results, we are required to give academic assessments. So all students enrolled everywhere in Kentucky in public schools take assessments of mathematics. They take assessments of English. And so that's the type of English that we all had as we were in English courses in high school, and all the Kentucky academic standards for language arts. So these English language students also participate in those assessments. But these are students who are not in environments where they're initially learning English in communicating. So these are what we call our English learners. All of us are learning the content base of English, but this is learning just to use the English language, even if we were just asking how to order a burger at a restaurant. This is about any kind of English language use. And so both of those assessments are required federally for groups that are identified, for students that are identified as English language learners.
So I guess my comment would be very similar to some of the other ones, that these are federal funds. And so the very last question is that, so amongst this, I'm not being overly critical, but amongst these children, would you say there's a percentage of those who are not only non-citizens, but maybe would be considered illegal aliens?
That I would have absolutely no information about. I can tell you these are students that are enrolled in Kentucky public schools. And you know, every child that enters a Kentucky public school is a Kentucky public school child. And we need to provide what is necessary and required for that. I have no idea around any kind of status that a child might have. Around that. That's not something that our office obviously would work with. There might be others in Kentucky that could answer that for you better.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Meredith.
Just to, I think maybe get some clarification to Senator Boswell's question, and don't mean to speak for you, but our description says this is 100% funded by general funds.
Right. Do you want to answer that, or do you want me to?
Well, that's, and I get that, but I think the point he's trying to make is we're struggling each budget session to provide funding for our students.
Right.
Now we're having to do something beyond outside the traditional scope of education to accommodate these children who are English second language.
Right, English
and
is
I
second
think
language.
We
That's
just
a good
need
way
to
of terming it.
acknowledge the true cost of immigration. I'm all for legal immigration.
Sure.
But as we're putting budgets together, we need to just acknowledge that there's a cost here that we haven't had before, and a poor state that we still are, it puts strains on us. So that's just a comment.
No, I appreciate that comment, Senator. And in fact, we were talking, just Karen and I together. We will go back and look why there isn't a split on this particular contract. Normally, if it's a federally required program, we do some split between general and federal funds. And you'll see that almost nearly all of our contracts. We were looking ourselves at why this one was not split, probably because when it was initially started back in 6 and 7, there might not have been as direct a line to federal funding. And so we can certainly go back and look at how the funds are split across the budgets.
I'd like to see that. I will vote to approve the contract, but I would like to know what that number
Yeah, we can certainly go
Thank
back
you.
and do that, because we normally do a split across general and federal funds.
Senator Douglas.
May I just follow up with one thing? Yes, I want to thank Senator Meredith for clarifying my position, because that's why I pulled this contract, because it was not federal funds, it was state
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen.
Go ahead, Senator Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd like to echo, I also, we actually, and I know that you know this, we actually read the contracts.
Sure.
So I saw the general fund, and that was part of my concern. But I still have two questions, if I may.
Sure, absolutely.
My number one question is, and you may have already answered this, do we know the ratio of Kentucky citizens U.S. citizens who are in Kentucky, children who are being educated, versus those that are residents, which are not the same definition? That is, those some would say those who are not U.S. citizens, that kind of thing, in terms of the ratio of which kids we are educating. And if if we don't have that, I would like to somehow get that information for this committee so that we know what we're educating. I was recently in a school where 25% of the children were in a troubling category, and I know some of our citizens are worried about that. The second question I have is, and you may or may not be able to answer this, when we look at our Commonwealth Constitution, is there something in our Constitution that says we have to educate non-citizens?
I'm not aware either. I certainly do not know the expectation in the Constitution around citizenship versus non. You know, when we are, I'm here with assessment programs, and so our assessment is based on who is enrolled in Kentucky Public Schools. So again, we don't collect in our office citizenship information. There may be someone in Kentucky Stats that would have that kind of information, and we'll be happy to reach out and see if we can develop the information you're requesting, Senator Douglas, around ratio, and we can ask our legal office around the Constitution. But Kentucky schools, we know that people are working hard every day for every child that comes in that building. And so I don't think there's been any discussion I'm aware of about any look specifically at status such as citizenship. But we will certainly go back and research those information. And again, it's just not something our office deals with. So I'm sorry to not be able to tell you more.
And I could not agree with you more. I could not agree with you more regarding the generosity of the people of the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Absolutely.
And regarding the hard work that our people in the education space are putting in. I could not agree with you more. What I'm concerned with is the conversations that I have with people in the education space, those people who are teachers, our principals, and others who are truly overwhelmed. They are truly overwhelmed. And my concern is that at some point someone may initiate legislation to put further guardrails around how and who is educated in the Commonwealth. And that's why I ask these questions, and that's why some of these numbers would be helpful in terms of the money we're spending.
We will certainly go back and check with folks and see who might have that kind of information. And we certainly will look first at Kentucky Stats and their KBE.
Okay.
To see
And
what
keep in
happens.
mind that initial reaction was surrounding the fact that it said 100%
Absolutely.
general fund.
And
So,
again, we'll talk about that split.
Yeah,
because
something
we
else may have
typically do.
mitigated that, but I appreciate what you ladies are doing. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Representative Pollock.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
Obviously, federal are required. You mentioned that.
Right.
And I noticed this University of Wisconsin is the university. Are they the experts here? And I'm just curious if all the other states pick.
Right. The University of Wisconsin has a expertise in English language development for English kind of learning, regardless of what your native original language might be in your home. There are really two assessments in the marketplace to meet this requirement. One is a consortium, really, of 42 states. Kentucky belongs to that consortium, which is called the WIDA Consortium. It operates out of the University of Wisconsin. The other one is something called ELPA, ELPA 21, which it developed out of California. It started initially as California's assessment, is expanded out in about 8 states of the 50 use ELPA. So Kentucky has been long-term user of the WIDA assessment and a partnership with those other 42 states, and we've been pleased with the resources and services they provide. But this is not a space that has lots of choices.
Right.
It's really kind of two that meet this federal requirement.
So all 42 states basically work with the University of
That's right.
Wisconsin.
Really.
I got you.
And really, I think the University of Wisconsin is sort of the operating mechanism, and the WIDA consortium is housed through the University of Wisconsin. And so the paperwork runs through the university.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
There's no other questions. Do I have a motion to approve contract?
Second.
Motion by Co-Chair Meredith, second by Representative Chester Burton. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Aye. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool. Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith,
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Next contract number 170. I have some questions on, and I would like for the alternative assessment program. Could you just explain that and kind of give us an overview? Because it seems like kind of a big deal, and I just want to understand it a little bit better.
Alternate assessment students are sometimes referred to as a 1% population because they're roughly about 1% of the students that are being served in public schools. They are the students with the most severe disability. And it's a level of disability that just through normal accommodations you can have during a test, you cannot necessarily do the test. And also the accommodations are not enough to handle the curriculum. That's the normal level curriculum. So students in an alternate assessment, they may be mainstreamed into regular classrooms, but they also have a lot of special pull-out support services. Federally, any assessment you require of all students that are in regular education that maybe don't need accommodations or just general no supports at all, you must do an alternate assessment for this population of students. So the University of Kentucky has been a long-term partner on creating an alternate assessment for Kentucky. At one point, the University of Kentucky had a national center for alternate assessment and was considered, kind of a national leader. And then I think federal funding for that center dried up. So the university works with Kentucky teachers to generate test items, and they are administered one-on-one with the teacher and the student. Because sometimes students are just learning language and symbolic language that are in this population. But then there's a huge variety within that 1%. Some actually are able of doing lots of things. But federally, we must offer an alternate assessment for them. But they are the students with the most disability. One of the things that sometimes we get questions around this time of year is alternate assessment students don't earn a standard diploma. They receive an alternate diploma, and to place them in the graduation rate calculation that's required federally, you have to have a specific kind of standard diploma. So we always get questions every year when test results come out around alternate assessment and how they show up in graduation. So you said it's an area you get a lot of questions about. That's a common thing we get questions about.
How's one qualify for it? How would a student
alternate
be?
assessment?
Yeah.
You again, it's a small number. We have probably less than 5,000 statewide, about 400 at grade level, where assessments are given. There's actually a process, as you're probably aware, Representative Hart, as students do what's called an admissions release committee to develop an individual education plan. There are sets of questions that you go through as you discuss with parents whether a student should be identified for alternate assessment. Sometimes students might start in alternate and actually matriculate out into regular assessment with support. Sometimes a student might remain their full experience in an alternate assessment program. But you look at you look at obviously testing results. They look at IQ assessments. They look at what students are doing within the classroom, where their challenges are. So it's a sort of a narrowed group for special education services.
And I guess it's a similar program in other states.
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean, are the success rates good? Any comment, or do you evaluate like that? Or
well, you do assign performance levels to these students as well. Their standards are different. They're linked up to regular standards, but they're different. We bring teachers of this population together to establish categories like novice, apprentice, proficient, distinguished. I do not recall specifically what the alternate. They are included in schools accountability, so they're included in all the pieces, but their assessment is a bit different because it is that one-on-one administration with a teacher and a student.
Thank you so much. I just needed a little education.
Sure.
So,
sure.
If there's no other questions or comments, do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion by Senator Meredith, second by Representative Chester Burton. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Aye.
Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton.
Yes, and I will explain my vote.
Go right ahead.
As an educator, I am very familiar with working with the ECE students, the FMD and MMD, and the assessments that they had to take. So yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative.
Representative McCool, Representative Pollock,
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye, and Mr. Chair, if I could, just want to commend Ms. Sims and Ms. Worth. I know you're frequent visitors to our committee. I'm sorry for that, but your wealth of knowledge on this subject matter is truly impressive.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the time you spend with us and educating us in this process. But
Thank you.
you're both to be commended for the job you do on
Thank
behalf of our Commonwealth and our young people.
Appreciate your interest
Thank you.
in allowing us to be with you.
Thank you.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion passes and or contact passes. Thank you all so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Next item on the pull list is with Department for the Community-Based Services and is number 14 on the MOA Amendment Yellow List. If referents are here, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Hello, I'm Todd Trapp. I'm the Director of the Division of Family Support.
Okay. Make sure you're green lighted. There you go. Push it.
Good morning, Jessica Hinkle, Division of Family Support Policy.
Just pull closer to you. There you go.
Jessica Hinkle, Division of Family Support, Branch Manager for Policy Development.
All right. Thank you so much. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you so much, and I believe Co-Chair Meredith has some questions.
I do, and it's pretty straightforward and simple. Huge increase. My math tells me about 120%. I know it is federal funding, but what's driving this? It looks like a huge increase.
This is something that happens almost every year. It's not generally this big of an increase where we roll the funding from one state fiscal year contract to the next.
Okay.
And we don't always have this much to roll forward. Most of the time it's just a tiny amount, but just we've had some extra funding during the pandemic for this particular program, and then the winters haven't been quite as severe. I will say this carry forward allows us to offer a summer cooling program. 90% of the carry forward is used straight benefits out the door, which helps families and helps municipal utility companies across the state. So it's in some ways a good thing that we have this much left over because of to allow for the summer cooling program, and then the fall subsidy, which just started this month, actually.
I agree. Good programs and certainly helps needy families. My concern was that we had an explosion of folks that were going to be eligible for this. That's what's driving the funding increase. But you're saying it's pretty much a rollover from the previous fiscal year.
Correct.
And I know you've been here a long time, and I appreciate that. But just caveat again is got to get some thought to what happens if those funding evaporates on us. So that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
If there's no other comments or questions, do I have a motion by
Second.
Representative Pollock, second by Representative Chester Burton? All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Douglas.
Pass.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool. Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you all so much for being with us and for waiting.
Thank you all.
Final item on the pool list is with the Kentucky Horse Park and is number 28 on the MOA for 50,000 and under gray list. If representatives are here, please come forward. Identify yourself for the record.
Good morning, Lee Carter.
All right, sir. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you so much, and I believe Senator Boswell has a question. Yes.
Thank you for being here. Is this a new program?
Yes and no, to be confusing. There was something that we administered back in the late 90s, early 2000s. There was a change to it in the late 2010s, and then we had a request to come back to it in this fiscal year.
Okay, if I may, just one more question. Can you explain this complimentary admission to guests of the KHP?
Absolutely. So the American Saddlebred Horse Museum has been at the horse park since 1983, and they have a museum. It's a beautiful museum that they've just spent a great deal of time, resources on renovating, and so they do not charge admission to their museum. But they do promote the horse park. So our guests that come to the horse park, our 1.4 million guests per year, have the opportunity to go visit their attraction for free. And so this is a reciprocal agreement there where our guests can attend that space for free, and then they will refer folks to the horse park.
Okay. I think that's all.
Motion to approve.
Make a motion.
Motion by Co-Chair Meredith, second by Representative Chester Burton. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool. Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Yes, I'd just like to explain to Mr. Carter that people who have Grayson County connections, we always make them go last. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion or contract moves forward. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Since I am last, I'll sit here and talk to you as long as you
There
like.
you go. Well, you're more than welcome to. Please take a moment to review items 11 and 12 on your agenda, and once we review it, is our motion to approve the same. Motion by Senator Boswell, second by Representative Chester Burton. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool. Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith. Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Everybody just please note December 10th at 9 a.m. will be our December meeting. And everybody have a good Thanksgiving. See you in December.